afternoon. We're really fortunate to have Shiv along with us to talk about his career in finance and also his pathway to his career that he's currently in. I'd also like to take the opportunity at this stage to thank the Merchant Tailors Company for allowing us access to Shiv and also his pathway and his experience. So thank you very much to them as well. So Shiv, I just wanted to start by asking you, what was your school experience like? How did you choose your A-levels and why did you choose them?
Sure. Let me just make a note of those three questions because I probably will forget.
I can remind you.
Thanks very much. What was my school experience like? I loved it. I absolutely loved being at school. So I went to Merchant Taylors School Northwards. I joined as a 13 plus joiner. I don't know if there's like a similar sort of, enrollment age group bracketing at the school in Crosby, but I joined at 13 after leaving quite a small prep school. So I think the biggest thing that I had to deal with was being a big fish in a small pond. My prep school had maybe about 120 boys to coming to school the size of Merchant Taylors, which was about 850 odd around the time that I was there. We went from having 2 classes in prep school to 8 classes, and you had different sets for the level of, I guess, ability that you had in a particular subject. But overall, everybody, because there were a lot of boys coming from different backgrounds, it was a super welcoming environment. I mean, to the point where I actually still live. My flatmate is one of my old school friends, so it was a fantastic experience. I've made friends, in throughout school that I'll keep for the rest of my life, and experiences that I'll treasure for the rest of my life for sure. And I really think it was the people around me that made it such an enjoyable experience. I feel like it's a national curriculum up to the age of 18, so whatever you study at school, whether it's Merchant Taylors or another school down the road, is largely going to be the same. But we are very fortunate to have a great group of boys in our year. We had, it almost didn't matter what you were good at, whether you were super sporty, super musical, extremely academic, everybody was able to have a laugh, which I think in a boys' school is quite rare. I would expect there to be, a little bit more rough and tumble play, but it was awesome. And the teachers were great as well. I think as we grew up, they started treating us like adults a little bit earlier than we probably should have been. And that was good because it taught us to, mature earlier than I guess a lot of people around us were maturing. And you bring the two together, and I think you end up in a stage in maybe lower sixth and upper sixth where you can have a bit more of a laugh with the teachers, which I thought was amazing because it sort of takes like a lot of the pressure that you're going through, and makes it a little bit easier to crack on with the work that you need to do.
Okay, go on. So you did your GCSEs there?
I did, yes.
And then was it always a given that you were going to stay on for sixth form?
It was, yeah. I couldn't imagine myself being anywhere else, to be honest. Just because, I was so ingrained with school life. I was, played A-team sports, was part of various like extracurricular clubs. Enjoyed the teaching. I got quite a lot out of it as well. So, it was always a given me to stay on, and also all of my friends were staying on as well. So it'd been very difficult to leave, and I couldn't imagine myself being anywhere else.
Nice bit of peer pressure though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So when it came to choosing your A-levels, what were the things that you were thinking about? How did you make that decision?
Sure. So I guess, and again, I'm not too sure how it works today, but there were like a bunch of compulsory subjects I had to take for GCSE. Yeah. And I figured out that actually I was quite good at quantitative subjects, maths, the sciences. I also took IT, which had like an element of like understanding structures of data, which was it helps me today actually. But there is an element of quantitative ability that you need to have there. So the toss-up for me was really between, and I also did 3 languages. I did Latin, French, and German. Okay. So it was, do I want to go down the languages route, which I really, really enjoyed, or do I want to go down the sort of more quantitative route that I enjoyed, but I was probably a little bit better at. And so I went down that route because I think when it came to A levels, I knew that I wanted to work in the finance arena. My dad works in finance, and I know he gets stressed out now and again, but he always seems to enjoy it, and we're quite alike in how we think. Also, my mum really wanted me to become a doctor, and me being a boy, the first thing I could say to my mum was, there is no way I'm going to do that, just because she'd obviously said it. Maybe it's just me being a bit too cheeky, but it was just an area that I didn't want to get to, so I'm a little bit squeamish. So yeah, everything was geared up to finance, and then I worked my way back, from career to university, and I said, okay, well, to do finance, I probably need to do something economics related, or accounting related, or finance related at university. And I had a little look with the help of some teachers as well of the sort of subject choices that they would want to have a look at. And so I landed on doing maths, further maths, physics, and economics, which is probably one of the most quantitative subjects you can get. Yeah, but it was sort of, the balance was between finding something that I felt universities would want from me, but also finding a mix of subjects that I was good at, and I felt confident that I could get some good grades.
Okay, and was that to continue 4 all the way through, or was that to do 4 in your first year and then drop down to 3?
It was to do 4 in my first year and drop down to 3. So yeah, so I was going to say the way that it worked at Merchant Taylor School Northwards, which is where I was, is if you did maths and further maths, you did all of your maths A level in your lower 6, and you did all of your further maths A, the qualification in your second year. So that was the idea behind that.
Okay. And at this point, had you seen any courses that took your interest, any particular universities that you like the look of?
I had. And it wasn't through family, it was more through family friends. I'm the eldest of all of my siblings, so I was sort of like, the litmus test for everybody else in my family. But I had some family friends who were a couple of years older than me, and they'd started looking. So, my dad's having a coffee with his mates, they're all sharing stories about going to universities, and so he suggested I had a look. And I think when I spoke to my teachers about what should I be doing if I want to be doing X in the future, we had a look alongside the kind of universities that I wanted to go to. So yeah, I had not the best idea, but I had a sort of rough area of places that interested me.
Okay, that's really interesting. So while you were in sixth form then, did you complete any work experience? Did you do anything that helped support your decision in sixth form?
Absolutely nothing. No, I did no work experience or anything like that. I mean, the only thing that could come close to work experience was, I think it was in between my GCSE and my first year of A levels. My dad wanted to get rid of me from the house because I was just causing a bit of havoc, really. And so he sent me to, of all places, Oklahoma, where one of his best friends now lives, and he's a property developer out there. And he said, you can go and work with him for a little bit, earn a bit of cash, and experience a different culture. So I did get a bit of an understanding of, I guess, how real estate development works out in Oklahoma, which is quite a niche market. But I wouldn't call it a work experience. It was more just experiencing something different whilst earning a bit of money, I'd say.
That's really interesting, actually, because I think a lot of our Year 12 students are a bit worried because they're going to be writing personal statements and will have sort of limited experiences. So actually, that's quite reassuring to our students, I think, because this is quite a time of flux, really, and I think they're a bit unsure about. So that's really good, actually, that happened to you, or that was your route.
Definitely. And on that note, I'll just briefly add that I think. And I've got some friends who work in, the admissions space and work for schools as well. And one of them is actually my cousin. And one thing he always says to me is it's not about, at this stage, having like a name of a company down and showing that you can do like a functional skill. It's just about having a diverse range of interests and having a diverse range of experiences to show that you're more than just somebody who can sit in front of a textbook and chop away at it. Not to say, by the way, that that's a bad thing at all. It's a great thing. But the experience side of things is, it can be as varied as doing charity work through to being shipped out to Oklahoma by your dad to, working in a cafe or something like that. I did a paper round for 2 years, and I put that down, and apparently they like that as well. So, yeah, that'll be my experience of experience.
Okay, so do you remember your when you applied for university? Do you remember where you applied to, and can you remember your experience of your personal statement?
Yes, yeah. So I applied to, God, I have to recollect. I applied to Oxford to study economics and management. I applied to the University of Nottingham for economics, Warwick for economics. I think there was then, I think Birmingham, and I forget my fifth. I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are the four that I was really interested in. I think one of them may have been a London university, but I was adamant of sort of, being a Londoner, getting away from London a little bit, to be honest. Um, in terms of my personal statement, I was fortunate in that, and again, I'm not too sure how it works at school today, but my careers advisor, or my UCAS advisor as they called him, was also my economics teacher. But he was also somebody who had experience of working in the city as well. And so he was really, really good at sort of highlighting a structure that worked well for essentially worked well for me needing to sell myself to university. And it was along the lines of, talk about yourself a little bit, talk about your interest in what you've read around the academic topic that you want to pursue at university, and why your school studies plus your extracurricular reading and your other interests all mashed together to make you a great candidate for the university and the course that you want to go to. And then there was a sort of section on what other stuff have you done, sports, extracurricular stuff, and talk to us a little bit about your soft skills that that mean you're going to be able to handle the rigor of the course. And I would say that that's actually quite it's a pretty similar structure to how you'd write a covering letter for most jobs today anyway. So yeah, you're learning quite early, which is good.
Okay, so you got your some results day,
I did.
and you'd accepted a firm and an insurance, I imagine, on your UCAS form.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So I'll caveat that by saying it was my first results day. My first A-level results day, I failed to meet the grades to go to my first choice and my second choice uni, which was, it was a huge shock for me. I guess the reason being that I had such a huge expectation of myself, and I think people around me had an even bigger expectation. I did all the sports, first team, did all the extracurriculars. I was head monitor, which is how I ended up being part of the Merchant Tailors Company. I got apprenticed into the company because of the position that I was in, which was great. And that day, everything just came tumbling down. Like it was truly an awful day. And I'd probably say the first half of the day, I just spent clueless. I felt like an absolute space cadet. I had no idea what to do, no idea what was going on, no idea what this meant. Largely because all throughout school, everything I'd been taught was very much along the lines of, you have a year to complete this amount of work, and there is a gate to, allow it. If you do well enough, you enter through the next door, and you kind of keep going. And I guess the bit that nobody ever told me was what happens if you don't go through the door, or you don't meet the grades to go through the door. So that was a shock. And then on the second day, I went back and spoke to the headmaster. Fortunately, we had a very strong relationship because of, I spoke to him on a weekly basis, being the head monitor, and he suggested doing a gap year. My UCAS advisor suggested going to a clearing, and I weighed the two together. I said, actually, I don't want to go to a clearing university because I feel like I could hit the grades next year. And the headmaster said, well, if you want to do that, go and do a gap year. And he put me in touch with the headmaster of St. John's School, which is another one of the prep schools that sits underneath the Merchant Tailors umbrella. And I had an interview with them, and they just sort of talked about what I was like as a person and my sort of background, and offered me the job on the day. And I sort of had, you know, 6 weeks to get myself ready to be a gap year student teaching 3 to 13-year-olds PE, rugby, hockey, cricket, and a bit of maths.
Really, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. Okay, and so did you independently resit everything, or did you pick and choose what you resat? What happened during the gap year in terms of your studies?
Sure. So I independently resat everything. But I did it through the school in the sense that, I could pay for the exam fee through them. I could obviously sit in the hall and do the exam, and be part of like the infrastructure that they have to monitor exams. And then they'd obviously take on my grades and stuff. In terms of UCAS and applications, I took that on myself as well. But my former economics teachers and my advisor were very good at, just saying, look, shoot me an email and we can always chat about it. Like, they were the line of communication was open. It wasn't just because I'd left school that, I was no longer part of the Taylors community. It almost felt like I was a student, but I was working a full-time job as well. So yeah, I think that's how that worked out, and very grateful to them because they were a huge help during that year.
Okay, and so then the next August came around,
Hmm.
and how were your results this time round?
A lot better, fortunately. I got into uni this time.
Okay.
I was very pumped. So yeah, it was excellent. I think when people go through results day, it's quite nerve-wracking in general. Um, and given that the first time round was such a blow, I try to keep myself as calm as possible. But I really just felt relief more than anything else. It was sort of hitting a target that I should have hit a year before. But yeah, all I could say is I was extremely glad, very excited to go to university, and started doing things immediately, like having a look at which halls I was going to be a part of, and looking at accommodation and getting all the sort of administrative stuff in order. Literally from the second that I got that envelope with my grades in it.
Your gap year seems incredibly valuable, though. I think.
It was very valuable. It taught me a lot of things actually. Probably stuff that I'd say you don't necessarily learn in the normal sort of realm of school. Um, One of those things I would say is uh, really just around pressure and expectation management. At school, because I always felt like, because I was doing so much and everybody expected so much from me, that messing up was just like, it was just not even in question. It just cannot happen. But of course, when you're teaching 3 to 13-year-olds, and you're only human and you mess up a little bit. I may have said a naughty word in the playground once. Um, my initial reaction was total fear. I thought I was going to get marched out the front door, but everybody was quite like, "It's okay, it happens," and sort of taking myself out of that pressurized environment and actually being in a workplace, and normalizing yourself to the attitude that you have to display there was hugely valuable. And I also think that dealing with things like parents, being on the teacher side of life, and teaching students as well, you get to see life from the other side. And I think you realize that all of the sort of premonitions I had around people having, this huge expectation on me, was probably a little bit false. I think they just wanted us to do the best that we could. And of course, they'd push you to do it, which I think is needed and important. But they just want the best. And it was really comforting to know that when I was starting to do my exams again, because instead of me doing work for what I felt was like the benefit of others and other people and hitting their expectations of me, it was all about me and what I wanted to do. And it was like taking a bit more control and being a lot more selfish and selfish in a good way, about what I want to get out of this. What I wanted to get out of this was a certain set of grades to get me into a specific uni, to get me into the career that I wanted. And yeah, it was invaluable.
So where did you
Absolutely
end
invaluable.
up? What course did you end up on?
So I ended up studying industrial economics at Nottingham, which ended up being my first choice in my second time round. I just look back on the whole sort of Oxbridge experience, and I'm, as a person, I'm somebody who likes to be extremely busy. Um, but at this, I like having a lot of variety, I should probably say. And I think when I looked at the whole Oxbridge experience and the kind of rigor that they go through in their academic year, I don't think it had as much variety for me as I could manage. So Nottingham was great in the sense there was a really good place to study economics. They pushed you hard, but there was lots of other things to do outside of it, and you did have some sort of leeway and freedom to choose what you wanted to do. So yeah, industrial economics at Nottingham, and it was a great
Can you
time.
tell us about any other interesting modules that you studied there that you sort of opted into or chose that were particularly interesting?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, the course was great because you had basically 50% of your modules were core courses, so things you had to do at university. Everything from, like competition theory, microeconomics, the advanced microeconomics, quantitative analysis, econometrics, all of that, financial economics, all that sort of stuff you had to do. But you also had um, a lot of flexibility to choose the other 50% of the courses. You could go to other schools around the campus, like biology or chemistry or languages or whatever, and choose courses to do from there. So I ended up doing a lot of finance-specific courses. Finance and economics and accounting, they're all very different disciplines academically. So I did a lot of things on finance. A lot of things around the theory of finance and then the actual practical application, so corporate finance, portfolio theory and construction, really just skills that, or the genesis of skills that I sort of use today in my job. And probably the outlier there was I did one module in Portuguese. And yeah, that was interesting. It kind of fulfilled that desire to do a little bit of languages when I went to university, and I had the opportunity to do it, and I took it, and it was great.
That's great, isn't it? That just shows sort of the options. So was it a 3-year degree that you undertook?
Yes, it was a 3-year honours degree.
And so what happened at the end of your degree then? Where did you go? What did you
So so I went straight into a job. I for the same company that I work for today. So you're probably wondering how on earth you magically get yourself into a job, which in itself is an interesting story. So in the first year of in between the first and second year of university, as I'm sure you'll all find, students have basically no money. So things like really nice holidays and stuff like that that you may have had taken care of before doesn't exist anymore. So in that summer, the only thought I had at the top of my head was, how am I going to earn some money so I can go on holiday with the boys? And I ended up working for the Merchant Taylors bursary fund. So and I think they still do it now, but every year they would it was the first year they were doing it, but they would essentially call all the alumni and begin to ask for either one-off or regular donations to the bursary fund, which is used to essentially cover the tuition fees of those from less financially privileged backgrounds, but have the aptitude and capability to thrive within the Merchant Taylor school environment. So I went there and I did that, and one of the conversations I had was with a partner from, he's now moved on, but he was at the time a partner at my current firm, so a very senior bloke. We fortunately shared the same physics teacher, Mr. Blight, and we had a fair few funny stories to share about him. So we were on the phone for probably about half an hour to 40 minutes, just having a chat and having a laugh about Mr. Blight. And at the end of it, he said, if there is somebody who can keep me from my wife while she's shouting at me for 30 minutes to book some plane tickets, we should definitely meet again. And so he gave me his number, and we ended up meeting for a coffee a couple of weeks later. And I just asked, I said, I would love to get a little bit of work experience, but I have no idea how to get there. And I gave him a little bit about my background and what I did, and he said, "Look, come and do a week for us." So I did 1 week in that summer. I did a full 10-week internship the following summer, and then the following summer was when I graduated, and by then they'd already said you can come and work for us full time. So I had in between July and the 1st of October off, and then 1st of October 2015 was when I officially started my full-time job.
Brilliant. That's really good, isn't it? Okay, I do remember those telephone campaigns actually. Yeah, so it's interesting that our students are similar, and it's interesting that it ended so well.
Sorry, Vic, you're cutting out there a little bit. Could you repeat that?
Of course, yeah. I think our school is looking at those telephone campaigns, and it's interesting that it sort of benefited you as much as it benefited the school in the end, actually. You know, those conversations with old boys and sort of the networking.
I think there's two parts to it. There's firstly, you know, ingratiating yourself within the alumni network. You know, networks exist for a reason. They're incredibly important, and they are there really for a two-way leverage. It's for you to sort of leverage them for advice, and it's for them to sort of leverage you for, you know, work when they need it. So do use it. And I think the second aspect that's really important is very early doors getting yourself involved in conversations with people who you have never spoken to. In my role today, when I go out and, you know, I hire people for the teams that, you know, need to work under me, or even parts of like the senior leadership that I've reported into, we've got like a kind of weird way of recruiting, but you get junior people interviewing the senior people. One of the things we always look for is how good are you at holding a conversation with somebody you've never met before. And I think in today's world, where, and I'm guilty of it too, everybody is glued to their phone, having that ability to have a conversation with anybody is like gold dust. And it will take you a long way in life. It'll take you a long way throughout your career. And I've seen people, you know, in my current role who are really awful at their jobs, but because they have this, you know, like ability to continuously talk and communicate effectively with people, they're right at the top of the tree. So if you get the opportunity, to those on the call, do it. Also, you get a little bit of cash in your back pocket, which is never the worst thing in the world.
That's great. Okay, so tell us about your job there. So what do you do? Tell us about that.
Sure. So I'm, I guess officially I'm called a senior analytics specialist, and I work for a company called Parker Fitzgerald, which is now, we just got bought out by Accenture, which is a bigger management / strategy consultancy. I think what you could say is, in terms of like career headings or groupings you could fit it under, I fit underneath a strategy consultant title, although I do management consulting work, and they are slightly different. And there's also the data part of it, so there's also a data consulting part. What do I do on a day-to-day basis? So basically my job is advising big financial services institutions, so retail banks like people you may bank with, Lloyds Banking Group, RBS, Santander, etc. Big investment banks, Goldman Sachs, UBS, JP Morgan, asset managers, basically any firm that has like a hand is intimately involved within the financial services sphere. I will advise them on one of two things: either how to meet a regulatory requirement, and secondly, if they have like what we call a strategic initiative, which is more of the kind of work I do. So if they say, I want to grow my bank in this particular region, or I want to sell off a part of my business in this particular region, we would do all of the sort of analysis that tells them whether it's a good or bad idea, and then we tell them exactly how to do it in the most efficient way, and make sure that they can tick off all the boxes that they need to get it done, essentially. And the reason why I guess the analytics part comes into it is we get given a big question by a bank, you know, how do we meet this regulatory requirement, or how can we grow this part of a business? And so the analytics part is we take lots of their data their financial data, their people data, their sales data. We knit it all together and create a story from it, to essentially tell them, if you were to do this, this would happen across all of your different functions. This is how it would impact your financial metrics, your profit and loss, capital, risk-weighted assets, liquidity, etc. And then we'd present it to them, and then they'd either go yes, no, maybe. We do want to go ahead with it, and if they say yes, then we would design from front to back what needs to change in the organization. We would then bring on a team to actually implement that change, and then once it's all done, we would leave. So and by the way, I'm very aware that all of this probably seems like a lot of fluffy wording. It is. Maybe I've spent a little bit too long in industry and I just can't get to the point. But think of it like this: if you were to, what's a good use case? So at school, if there was like a new department that needed to be built, and somebody came up with the idea saying we need to build, this new, like computer science building to offer all of these like coding courses or something like that, we'd be responsible for everything from the day that they say that through to the day that it's done, people are enrolled on courses, all the budgets are agreed, etc., and we can leave and the school can just continue with this new suite of coding courses and a new IT building.
What would you say the best and the worst things about your job are?
Oh, that's very difficult. That's a very difficult question. The best thing, so given that we're now part of a bigger company, but we're still a small firm, the best thing is the responsibility and the pressure. I really, really like the amount of pressure that you have to make a decision that's so important.